you guys can all go there, and that is where all of the internal grants are posted. And I'm going to go through each of the internal grants um,
You want to
one by
introduce
one.
yourself first?
Oh, yep, sure. I'll start with that. Hi, my name is John Johnson. I am Associate Director of Research here at the Research Development Institute. And part of my job is to help support the Research Council. Tina and I both support the USF Faculty Research Council, which is part of the Faculty Senate. And that is actually one of the fun parts of my job because I work with faculty a lot, and I do like that. Um, so yeah, happy Friday and welcome to our first workshop on internal grants. So this is kind of a launch workshop so we can talk about the different internal grants. I will be stopping at the end of each internal grant. I'll probably spend about 5 minutes on each one going over it, and then we'll pause so that anybody who has questions about each grant can ask, and we can talk a little bit. And that should give us enough time to get through all of them in less than an hour. All right, so first, again, I dropped into chat. If you go to usf.infoready4.com, that will take you to the USF InfoReady site, which should look like what I have on my screen and I'm sharing with you. You can go ahead and log into it as well, and it's single sign-on, so it should automatically log in for you. This is the basic home screen. To go to internal grants, you just click on this little box, the menu box in the corner, and go to internal awards. And this is all of the current internal awards up in the system right now, which includes all of the internal awards from the Research Council. What I like to do when doing anything in this system is I like to sort them by date. So you see this little arrow here. If you click on that, it will put them in order by the newest to the things furthest out as far as due dates. And that just makes it easy to read through what you're looking at. We also have limited submissions in this system, which is a separate menu item. So this is just a helpful way to sort stuff as you're looking for it and you're looking for when things are due. All right, so the first of the internal grants from the Research Council that is due is the conference planning grant. So you can go here and you can click on it. And right now in this one, I haven't logged in yet because I have a different view as login than most users do. So without logging in, my view and your view should be the same. So if you go to the conference planning grants, it'll be here. Here's some basic details about when it's due. Here's more details of the cycle, the stuff. The most important thing about this is here are the full guidelines. For any time you are applying to any funding opportunity, it's always best to look at the full guidelines. You'll see here, if you go down, we have a brief description of this, which covers a lot of that. And at the bottom is an apply button. So if you want to apply to a funding opportunity, you just click the apply button and that will take you in. I will show you that in a minute, a little bit about what that looks like. But first, we're going to go to the guidelines. So if you click and download the guidelines, then you will get something like this, which is just a PDF that has all of the guidelines for the conference. It's only, what, 2 pages? So pretty easy to read. Things that you always want to pay attention to are the eligibility criteria, which is basically, are you a faculty member not on a terminal contract, tenure earning, or regularly renewable position. And other things to note, you can only apply for one of these in a year. And then if you look down here, here's our evaluation criteria. So you'll want to read through all of the evaluation criteria as you're responding to this opportunity. It's important for any grant that you look at what you're going to be evaluated on to make sure you're addressing those things, because I basically turned like each of these items into a scoring metric for the evaluation. So they're going to be looking to see if you've addressed each of these areas. So you just want to make sure that you've clearly addressed them. If you go back to here and you click the apply, it will take you to the actual application. I'm going to move over to this one. Sorry, this is my view. So internal awards, 6.5, conference planning grant. And my view is a little different right here, but I can get to what you will see. It just takes me an couple extra clicks. Requirements. And preview. So this is what you should see when you hit the apply button, which are first name, last name. You put in your title of your application, your requested amount, department, college, co-PIs. There is a letter if you're a non-tenure track faculty, which is explained in the guidelines, what when you would need the letter and what needs to be in the letter. We kind of give you the instructions here as well. And then this is, you need to upload a brief description of your conference here. And then on the next page, here's where you upload the file. And the file, again, in your guidelines, it tells you exactly what you need. And that's where you need to make sure you're hitting all of the review criteria that we talk about in the guidelines. Then when you hit next, you upload your budget summary here as one file, also a PDF, pretty standard. And then you'd hit preview. This is the one part where I get the most questions. You have to hit preview. It'll show you what you've uploaded. And once you've previewed it, then you can actually submit, and that's how you submit your application. Now, if you don't submit your application, you can always leave. You can come back a week later. When you log in, your application will still be there in a draft stage. So this lets you go in and back as much as you need if you need to bring in other things. All right, so that is the basic application. Here are the guidelines. First, are there any questions from anyone on this conference application?
How competitive is it?
So that's a good question. I would say I think it's about a 50% funding rate now. It used to be, I think, more like a 75% funding rate, but we got a lot of conferences last year, so we didn't get to fund as many as we normally do, or we didn't get to fund as high percentages as we normally do. So, but yeah, I think we fund more than 10. Isn't it something like 10 to or 8 to 10? I think it's like 10, somewhere around that. The Research Council doesn't set an exact amount on anything. They have an approximate amount, and they can come back later and fund other things depending on how they allocate their funds. So, but they generally try to set a basic amount. Everything in the Research Council is done by merit and by review of Research Council members. And we actually put a requirement, anyone who gets an internal grant, that we can actually tap them and have them help us review other grants later. So that's kind of a requirement if you get a grant, that you might be willing to help us review other grants. So yeah, but everything is awarded on a merit basis based upon scoring against the evaluation criteria. Is that helpful?
That is helpful. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Okay. If we don't have any other questions, I will go to the second one. Again, in InfoReady, if you go back, and then we're looking by the due dates. The second one that's coming up is the Faculty International Travel Grant, the FITG. So again, if you go into InfoReady, you click on it. Here is the basic information. Here is where the guidelines are. Definitely download and look at those guidelines. It's only 2 pages. Things to know about this grant, it's right here. I have downloaded and uploaded them. Again, similar faculty tenure track, and a renewable position. You can only apply for one. What they're really looking for this one, if we look to the evaluation criteria, is potential importance of the presentation to the visibility and reputation of USF. So they really want things that make us visible. They're looking for things where you're invited to present at a conference. Last year, this was very competitive, and most of the funders were actually people who were giving keynotes at an international conference. So they had major roles that they were invited for, but they didn't, because it's international, like they'll give them like a $2,000 or $3,000 honorarium, which isn't enough to pay for airfare to some of these places, let alone airfare, hotel, and all those other costs. In which case, they would tell us what they were getting and what they needed in order to make themselves whole. So we do want to know if you have other funding sources and how much those are. Those are requirements of the application. And yeah, again, the eligibility criteria is fairly straightforward. And you really want to pay attention to the evaluation criteria, the prestige of the meetings. We like to see as part of it the actual invite that you've actually been invited, and not just submitted something to be presented there. That gets higher scores. They don't it looks like we don't really fund after the fact at this point. So they're really looking for things that are coming up. The Research Council used to do this twice a year. Right now, they're only doing it once a year, but they're contemplating whether they should be doing this again or not. So that is unclear. We'll see how many applications we get, and then we'll see how else they are spending the money. Is there anything? Okay, so again, so here's all the criteria. If you go back, we'll go back to info ready again. When you go down to the bottom, most of this is up here, but it's always good to read the actual PDF. That is the PDF is what the members of the Research Council reviewed, voted on, and approved for the RFP for this. So you'll hit the apply button, and that will take you into the system. Very similar to the other one, except there's now more. Let me bring this one over, and let me go back. Home, internal awards. You'll see I do this internal awards. I search by due date, faculty international travel grant. There's this. Oh, look, it's logged me out. So I have to log in. Okay.
May I ask a question while you're doing that?
Yep.
So within the application for each internal award, are the questions within InfoReady tailored to that specific competition, or are they all the same?
They are different. That's exactly why I was going into this one, because it is different than the first one, and everything in the application, we break it down specific for each one. So that's why I'm going into this now. Requirements. So when you hit the apply button, what should come up for you is this. So you'll see the beginning is the same, the name, title, department, college, this stuff, tenure track, but then you start to get things that are unique to the type of opportunity. Because it's a travel grant, we want to know the dates, the destination, the total funding that you're requesting, title, the meaning you'll see. So this is all broke down based upon what this particular opportunity needs. So we ask each of these questions differently for each one. They're basically they really direct you. The directions are very specific. And again, they're very specific based upon the opportunity itself.
Molly has a question.
Okay, Molly? Oh, would this travel grant also, I'm reading it now. Yep.
Yeah.
Would the travel grant also apply for an invitation to give an invited talk internationally as part of a seminar series rather than a conference? Yes, it would. A faculty international travel grant is not a conference grant. The question, I mean, you're going to be rated on how prestigious the seminar is. If this is a large seminar that has a large international audience, then you're going to want to kind of brag about that and talk about the size and scope, because that is important, and that is one of the review criteria. So looking at how does this raise USF's visibility? So if it's a big prominent conference in your field, a seminar in your field, then that would absolutely qualify. And we have another question. Go ahead.
I have a question about the timing.
Yep.
I thought in the past I did notice this grant opportunity, but I was not able to apply because you have a deadline. You know, your deadline is in November, but if I got an invitation or acceptance letter in December or January, then I cannot apply.
Okay, so here's the question. If you think you're going to get an acceptance, a lot of people are applying knowing they're under consideration. You can go ahead and apply and say this is pending. And if the review hasn't gone out, when you get the invitation, you'll reach out to me and I can still add it into your application. If the reviews aren't out or if they're not completed yet, then we can still I can make changes to the application as needed. So we have a little bit of flexibility based upon when something is being reviewed. I think this is actually being reviewed in December, however. Tina, is that right? I think this one, the particular one, we review it, make decisions in early December. So it depends on when you get that notice. So there's a little flexibility after the deadline where you can apply and I can add things to the application if they were timely. Like if you sort of have, if you got a feeler from someone, but they haven't given you a formal invite, but they're giving you something informal, then you can put that there and then hopefully you'll get the formal invite before it actually goes out for review. So it might give
Does
you an
that
extra
mean
week
that
or two.
does it mean that the Research Council could award something contingent on being accepted?
They actually do, and there are provisions in the guidelines for that. So if you've submitted an abstract and you're waiting for it to be accepted, there are provisions in the guideline that allow for that. So,
And the review for that is December 1st.
okay, so basically, and our initial deadline was when on this one? We can look and see.
The deadline is November 13th.
Right. So if the week after that, or it'll go out for a review probably the week after that. So if you got something a week later, if you know something's coming, you can always reach out to me and I can add it so the reviewers can see the updates. But we just need to have the pending or whatever's there, depending on where you are in the process. We try and be as flexible as we can be within the allowable timeframes. But in general, we set the deadlines close to when we're trying to do the reviews to give people as much time to apply as possible. So, but there's still a little bit of flexibility there.
So is it possible to make like the review like ongoing, change to ongoing like a process? You can always, whenever you get the chance, like get the invitation or acceptance, I can always apply beforehand. Because I
So
think a deadline, it's even if you have flexibility, but still, if your review happens in December and I got acceptance or invitation in January or February, still I lose the opportunity. So is it possible to change to like an ongoing rolling basis?
the issue is that these are all awarded on a merit basis, so you're compared to other things. So they need to figure out, and we get a lot of them. So if we did it on a rolling basis, all the money would be gone the first day because that's when all these applications come in. There is limited funds and we have more applications than we have funds for. So we have to do it on a merit-based basis, which means we have to have some deadlines, some comparisons. Now, the Research Council again we talked about it at the last meeting. This is one where they might consider doing it twice a year so that there's at least more than one opportunity, because the once a year means some people are genuinely, there's just no way they can apply for this particular opportunity depending on when some conferences are. So it would be nice if it were twice a year. I will say that I don't get to make that decision. The Research Council is part of faculty governance, so you can talk to your Research Council rep if you think that we should have these, award a lesser number of them, but award them twice a year or 3 times a year. That they can do. But again, if they did it on a rolling deadline, then it becomes who applies first, in which case all the money would be gone by December anyway, because we get more applications at this one deadline than we have the money to fund in a year. So that's the problem.
I think I do need to talk to the governance. But I think, for example, if you currently you have one application cycle, and for example, you award like let's say you award 20, you give 20 award. If you change to 3 deadlines, 3 application a year, and then you can divide 3, like each time you give out like 8 or something.
Yep.
Divide through. I think that's more I think that's better because the conferences happens, international travel happens all year long.
Yep, I tend to agree with you, and I think that this is under consideration by the council. Again, they literally just talked about it, whether we should do at least 2 deadlines for this. The Research Council doesn't meet in the summer, so so yeah, I think that is a fair critique, and I think that the whole point of faculty governance is that they should hear from you, so you can talk about it. Yep, and if you shoot an email to Tina, we can figure out who your representative is, so we can let you know who to reach out to. We just need.
What other funding is there for faculty to support international travel? Are there grant opportunities within colleges or departments or external funding that they can consider as well?
Well, I mean, I think that depends on the college. Like some colleges do and departments do have funding. So that's where they're supposed to, part of this application is for them to check with your colleges to see what funding they have for you as well. And some provide as part of your professional development a certain amount of money, which can be used on travel every year as well. This is just an additional source for specific types. And the purpose of this, part of the purpose of this at the university level is to raise the profile of USF. That is why we are funding it, because there is a certain amount of professional development that is supposed to be supported at the college level. So the purpose of this is slightly different. It's not just a conference, it's a conference to build USF's prestige around the world. I don't know if that helps. But yeah, if you email Tina your your department, college, we can look up for you who your representative is, so we can let you know that. Okay. Any more questions about this one? All right, so let's see. I will go on to the next one. Let me just move this down. All right, so back to limited. Oh, I'm in this. Back to home. And once I go to home, then I can go to internal awards. All right, and same search. So the next one is the Interdisciplinary Center Preparation Grants. This is a preliminary proposal, not the full proposal for this. And this is basically the largest grant that the Research Council puts out. If you go in, it's here. Again, the guidelines are here. You can request up to 300,000. They're looking for interdisciplinary research, so across different disciplines. And these particular grants are geared towards groups that are looking to apply for a larger external funding source. So as part of the application, you need to have a target of a larger federal or private grant of significant funds. The 300,000 max depends. It depends partly on the source you're going for, because you have to name the larger source that you're going to work towards. And when you name it, the maximum you can apply for is 10% of whatever that larger amount is that you're thinking of going for. So 10% up to 300,000. So whichever one of those is less. We will do the same thing. So the basic information is here, the eligibility criteria. You can only be a PI on one of these in any grant cycle. If you've been awarded one, then you can't be a PI on another one for the 3 years that you have it. And there's other things as well. Now, for the preliminary proposal, it's just a little 2-page proposal. Let me again open up the other one so I can show you what that looks like. But again, if you look at the, actually, let's go to the guidelines first. Where are my guidelines? Boom. Guidelines, ICPG, open. So yeah, that's right here. So there's, again, we have eligibility criteria here. So you can go over all the criteria to make sure you fit. They have priorities. So you look at the prioritize criteria just so you address that. There's procedures here. Note, this is the pre-proposal stage, so that it's a much simpler application. You're giving a couple sentences on each of your team members, and you're giving a 2-page PDF that has these things in it. And then if you're invited forward, full proposals is later, and that's a separate application with a separate deadline. But they're going to take the pre-proposals, which are hopefully a lot less work, and decide which ones have the potential, given the other ones you're competing against, to decide who should move forward to the second round. Again, let me go back to this, and let me go, so I can just, okay, so interdisciplinary center grants, this is the one to 12.4. And when you hit the apply button, you will get something that looks like this. Again, you'll see some of this stuff is the same, and then co-applicants, and then some of the stuff is, here's the link to the larger opportunity that you're going to apply for, and here's your 2-page project description that you upload for this. Again, this is meant to, as a pre-application, as a pre-proposal, this is meant to be a simple application in order to determine which large interdisciplinary groups will move forward. Same with InfoReady, you preview. Once you've uploaded everything, you can leave it, come back to it when it's a draft. Once you're done and you think you're ready, you can preview it, and it'll show you everything you've submitted, and then you can press the submit button, and then it will be in. questions on this one, because this is our largest one. They're looking at really interdisciplinary projects. They're looking at size and scope. What this is supposed to do is help build the team, because you can't get those larger grants without already having worked together. So what this is meant to do is help establish working relationships, so you can maybe get a couple publications, get this and other smaller grants together to really make yourselves more competitive for these larger opportunities. So that's kind of the goal of this. And it's also really about, some of it is about breaking down the barriers at an institution. We really want people working across disciplines. We know that makes us more competitive in this environment, and as the environment gets more competitive, it's important to have every advantage you can. Um, right now, we're looking at probably 3 awards this year. It does depend on the size of the awards, because if there are a couple smaller awards, they might fund it differently. So the Research Council has some flexibility. And again, it depends on who applies, how much they apply for, and how they score. The Research Council really looks at things on merit. So they're really looking at how competitive they are. And you'll see in the guidelines one of the first things you're rating on is this team going to be competitive for this opportunity? So is this a good fit? So they're really going to be looking at your fit when looking at these 2 pages to make sure it makes sense. I think Tina has posted all the previous award winners on the web last year. Tina, is that right?
Yes, they are posted on the web.
So Research Council is transparent.
I'll put a link.
Okay, so drop a link in there. But the Research Council is transparent with everything. They post all their minutes, everyone they fund, everything is up so that everybody can see it. And we've, as part of shared governance, they are a believer in transparency. So they do try and share as much as they can. Are there other questions about this one? Okay.
I have a question.
Yep.
So because there are center proposals, is it recommended that people that are instructors or assistant professors or early in their career serve as PIs, or are they encouraged to serve as co-PIs?
That is actually in the guidelines. So when you read the guidelines are specific that they really want as a lead PI someone that is competitive to be the lead PI of the proposal itself. So someone who is younger in their career would certainly bring some innovative stuff to the team as a co-PI, but your lead PI should have a fairly lengthy CV with a track record of external funding, because that's the only thing that's going to make them competitive for these larger grants is a previous track record of other grants. And again, that is mentioned in the guidelines. So it's really important to read through all of the guidelines to make sure you're fit, and all the recommendations are there. As far as
if I'm a PI that wants to apply for this, then how do I find out who the people are across USF that might be good collaborators or co-PIs?
Well, we have multiple ways to do that. One way is to talk to the RDI, because we can help you do that. There's also different, do they have access? Academic Analytics has some of that information as well, where you can look up who's in this area or that area. There's also networking, like if you're, RDI has our think tanks on different areas. So you might be participating in some of the think tanks, and that's a good way to meet people outside of your discipline around topics you're interested in. So that's also a great way to start to form a group or get into a group that's already existing. So yeah, talk to us, look up people, participate in those things going on around us. Do you have other suggestions, Sandy?
The innovation series that kicked off this week is also a great way to not just connect with other PIs, but also industry and our innovation team.
Yep. So, which is, yeah, again, there are more and more opportunities. So when you get those things for researchers, like scan them, see if it's something of interest to you, because there's a lot going on and some of that can really benefit you. So we're trying, so the provost and research and innovation, everybody's realized like external funding landscape has gotten a little more difficult. So we're trying to be more creative in finding ways to help you guys find opportunities, link with other people, find new and different ways to get funding to help support your research. So we're rolling out new things and new ways of doing things, knowing that things are a little more difficult now, and we need to, and you guys are going to need more help. So just a bit of honesty there. Yeah. All right. Do we have other questions? All right. If we don't have any other questions about this, I will go on to the next one. Boom, boom, boom. Info ready applications. Let me go back again. I'm always going back to the base. Let's just go back to the basic one. This is where when you come into info ready, this is the basic info ready, and then you go up to your menu and you choose internal awards. If you're looking for limited submissions, they are also on here. But right now, today's talk is about internal awards. I'll do one on limited submissions in a few weeks. I, again, always like sorting by date to know what's up and coming and what's later. That's just useful for me because I work under deadlines. So the next opportunity is the Mercia, which will go here. This is an equipment grant, up to $150,000 for pieces of equipment for faculty. So again, here's a brief description of it on InfoReady, and as part of, actually, this is almost all of it, but you should always go to your guidelines because these are the guidelines as put out by the Research Council. Similar eligibility where you have to be faculty, full-time, working this. They do prioritize them. So if you take a look at this, you'll see kind of what the reviewers are looking for. And they have their selection criteria here. Currently, if it's part of an institutional core, you are not, institutional cores, which are larger university cores, are not eligible for this opportunity. There is talk, we want to make sure that there's more funding that's going to go to the cores. If there's not more funding, I did hear talk that they could change this to make this open to everyone. But for now, it is not open. It cannot be purchased by an instrumental core facility because we're hoping there will be separate money for them. So this is kind of 150,000 is smaller pieces of equipment for most of these areas. So you're talking about things being used by a group that's not university wide. So they really want to see who's going to use it, looking at the track record for those users and how competitive they will be for funding. While this is not an institutional core, we still want to see that there are multiple users of this and what they're using it for and what that will lead to as far as research and external funding. I will again go to the other one to show you what the application looks like. Let me just jump out of this again. Total awards, flip. And so by the end of this, you will be very used to how we navigate these things. Okay, so faculty travel and interdisciplinary, Mercia, here's the Mercia. So when you hit that apply button, you won't see this page. What you will see is this page here. It should look like this when you hit that apply button in the opportunity. Again, each of these for every opportunity is slightly different. We've changed, some of it is all your basic information, that's going to be the same, but some of that is based upon the specific instructions for that opportunity. And again, we try and we change this and what we're asking for each one. So you can see you can have up to 25 additional personnel who are using a piece of equipment. So you just put as many people there and what they do. There are very specific things for this. There's a 3-page plan, 1-page expected outcomes, and then biosketches for all the PIs and co-PIs. So you'll see these are slightly different. And again, the RFP explains it all, but we kind of make sure that we are mirroring most of that language in the actual application itself. So you know what we're asking for. Anything that's a file, we're hoping you upload a PDF file because that's generally what all the agencies are asking for now is that you upload PDF files. And if you're using Word, that's an easy convert. You convert it to PDF and then upload it. And you upload separate files for each of these areas. And we tell you the length for a lot of them, what's allowable. So, again, once you upload everything, you press the preview button and it will show you what your application looks like. And then at that point, you can press the submit button. If you want to submit, if you want to step back for a day and come back the next day and look at it again, you can do that. InfoReady has that ready for you. So questions about the Mercia? Yeah, and this is a equipment grant up to 150,000, hoping for multiple users, currently not open to core facilities themselves, to university core facilities. There are some colleges that have their own core facilities, and I believe that they would be, it's just university core facilities, because we're hoping that they will be funded from somewhere else. Okay, if there are no other questions about this, we will go on to the last couple. I think there's, let's see. So, already, let's go back. Internal awards by date. So the internal awards, so once we get past the what am I doing? 10, 25, 11. Mercia, that's not ours, that's not ours. I will say while I'm here and looking through them, we're trying to post all internal awards, not just the research councils on this website. So you will see again, the publication council has their opportunity up here as well, which is up here. So that's there. It's a very similar. Go ahead and ask your question.
I see the category includes internal award and USF Research Council award. So what's the difference? So USF Research Council award is not internal awards?
It is an internal award. See, as you can see, they're all internal awards. We're just trying to show you who the funder is, just so you know, so it'll make it easier. Because occasionally, like some of the colleges will put up their own funding. And if a college is putting that up, then you'll want to look at the eligibility, because some colleges, only those from that college will be eligible. So if you see the flag here that it's from a college that's not yours, you're going to want to pay attention to whether you're eligible when you go into the opportunity. I will say that the regional campuses put up like the St. Pete regional campuses will probably put theirs up in 2 weeks, and those are open to everyone, but they are open. The St. Pete ones are, there's one that's partnerships across campuses. So someone from Tampa campus can be partnering with someone for the St. Pete campus, and they are eligible. They're also for partnerships in Pinellas County. So any faculty member across the U.S. who's working with any organization in Pinellas County would be open and eligible for that. But that would be listed as a St. Pete funded grant, and then you just want to look at the eligibility to make sure you're eligible for it. So yeah, so there will be different categories of them based upon who's funding them, and what we're just trying to do is let people know who's funding it, so that you can figure out, so that you have a heads up to look closer at the eligibility to make sure that you're eligible for that one. So yeah, and we're starting to use this flag more, just because we know that more and more people are going to be using it. So we're trying to be helpful there. Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure I understand. So yeah, maybe so I know the USF Research Council award, that's like university level.
Yes. So
other internal can be college level or other campus.
Yes, they can be different people. And so if you don't know who it is, you just want to pay more. But this one is actually open to everybody as well. They only do that one grant, so they didn't create anything for themselves. And they also, how they're going to be listing may change as of next semester. And then these are just research and innovation. So they are actually open to everyone as well. So anything there. We're just trying to, as we get more and more people on it, we want to start using this category more, so that if you see a specific, like College of Arts and Sciences or College of Education, that may be an indicator that if you're not in that college, read the eligibility in the very beginning to make sure you're eligible. That way you're not wasting your time. But what we would like to do is get all colleges and everyone putting all their internal grants here, so that everybody's going here to look for them, regardless of college and stuff. So this is something that will hopefully come into play more, but we are starting to list them just so that people recognize funding sources. I will also say, anytime you apply for any funding opportunity, it is really useful to understand where those funds are coming from, because that can tell you a little bit about the purpose of the funds, and just knowing where they're coming from, you can sometimes do some research and make yourself look better depending on who's funding the opportunity.
So in the future, you are going to change the like the organizer or category change to like instead of internal only, you will show like a College of Arts or Science,
Yeah,
like a school
exactly.
public. So that okay, that will be that will be better. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's why the University Research Council awards there, that's clearly for everyone. Like these two are really honors and awards, which is also open to everyone, but they are a separate department from the Research Council. So it's someone else who gets to make the final decisions. So depending on who's supporting it. So we want to, and ultimately we're also going to have stuff coming out from the foundation. It's going to be putting stuff on here, and the foundation stuff will list the USF Foundation separately. So that's coming because they've already sent us a couple things that we're getting ready to put up. But that category, that might be in limited submissions, but we want to use the category consistent across the platform. So that you're aware of who's kind of supporting it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And again, yeah, there may be other things here beyond ours. And that's the hope is we're trying to make this a one-stop shop for you guys for a lot of stuff and make it easier for you to find some of these opportunities. Because some of them, like they came out once, and if you aren't paying attention to your email, you could miss them. So here's a place if you're coming back to check for something, you might stumble onto something else. Same way, while you're here, I would recommend you also just jump over to limited submissions and take a look at some of them, because there's different stuff here. Again, I would sort by date, and you can look at what's there, when it's due, and if any of these opportunities are of interest to you, because there's plenty of opportunities there. So let me jump back to, but I digress. All right, so that was Marcia. So the next one for us is the new researcher grant, which is due in January. Again, you come here, here's the opportunity, here's the guidelines themselves. The big thing is you have to be in the first 4 years of your career. There's a very specific cutoff, so read the guidelines to know exactly when it is, but it's within the first 4 years to apply for this. It's a $20,000 grant. This one is competitive, but I think this is one of the ones when the Research Council had a little money left over, they came back and awarded more. So how many did they finally award of the new researcher grants? 13? Did you put that one up there? Yeah. So they awarded 13 of them at $20,000 each. So this is one of the big ones as far as, given that it is $20,000. They awarded quite a few of them, but I think there were a lot of them as well. Yep, 49 of them, which is why they felt like there were a lot of really good ones. And so I think we originally awarded 10, and then they came back 2 months later and awarded 3 more because they just felt like there were a lot of good ones there. Just like every other RFP, you're going to look at the purpose. You're going to look at what it is. You're going to make sure you read the eligibility criteria to make sure you meet all those criteria. This one, there is specific information about when the 4 years is compared to when you submit your application. So you just want to make sure you fit into that as an actual new researcher. There are some little eligibility criteria. And again, as with all RFPs, when you see what they're evaluating on, make sure you're addressing that in your proposal. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not a new researcher. I'm tenured and have been working here for many years. But I have never applied for this new researcher grant. And in the past, our field has federal funding, but our federal funding has been cut to zero. We have no federal funding anymore. So I have a project that I need funding, not much money, like $20,000. Where can I get the money? So is there an opportunity for us, like a not new researcher, but we lost our external funding?
Right. So this particular opportunity would not be for you. The Creative Scholarship Grant. So most of these funds, so the new researcher grant, we're including Creative Scholarship in there. So that is part of that. A lot of the research are for research or creative scholarship in general. The Research Council does, sorry, I'm kind of answering 2 questions at once. So let me answer all these questions at once. Good ones online. So one, so if you were more tenured, you don't qualify for the new researcher grant. Maybe you can hang on at the end of this call after we're done with this talk, and we can talk a little bit about maybe other sources for you. After we
Okay.
stop
Okay.
recording,
Okay.
that we'll talk a little bit with you separately so that we can see if we can give any advice to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, for the new researcher grant, they're absolutely for junior faculty. This is the whole point of it. Yes, you can still have startup funds available when you're using this. You just need to you need to explain why you need to use these funds, because we are looking like, do you have startup funds or not? If you have a large amount of startup funds, then they're going to probably be less inclined to award it to you. But if you're explaining that your startup funds are to order this equipment or this thing, so you basically already have a plan for them, and this is why you need this money, you really want to address that in your application so they understand that you have other funds, but you already have plans for them. The new researcher grant is for both research and creative scholarships. So it is about you being a new researcher, like in the first 4 years of your career. So you are eligible for these. The Research Council for a lot of these grants they look at merits, that they look at scoring, but they also try and look at making sure they're not awarding all of their grants to the same college and department. They really want to make sure we have a diversified portfolio and that they're awarding them across the university. But they have to do that within a calculation about what has merit as well. So they're really looking at merit scores, and they're also looking at the diversity of the portfolio, making sure that they are getting people in different areas. Any other? I see someone else typing, so I will wait to see what you're typing. About the 4-year eligibility criteria, I can't use last year. Nope. So it's when you got here to USF. So if you read in the guidelines, it's not about where you are in it's about when you got to USF and when your 4th year ends. So it seems like so that's different. So you should still be eligible because it's the 4th year at USF. Yes. And for your other one, you just because you have another grant for 60,000, you are still eligible. Again, your new researcher grant is about a specific project. So you need to be selling the project and why you need this money to do this project. If you have other funds to do other projects, as a researcher, you're really trying to build your track record. So you have to do more than one thing at once, and that's perfectly fine. And your other grant just shows that you are a strong researcher. So that just helps your CV. It does not hurt you in any way, shape, or form.
Elizabeth has a question.
Yep. Okay, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, great. No, my question is about the Creative Scholarship Grant. You had mentioned that the new researcher grant included that category, I suppose. But for those of us who are beyond our 4 years, the Creative Scholarship Grant really filled a need that none of the current grants do. They all have something specific. And the Creative Scholarship Grant was sort of, for various kinds of research needs that you might have, not necessarily interdisciplinary, for instance, or not conference-based, but other kinds of research. And without that, I feel that I have basically kind of lost my research funding. There's nothing that I can use to further my research agenda. So that's why I asked, is there any plan to bring the old CSG back, the one that was for those beyond 4 years?
So I think the Research Council is open to suggestions. I think, again, everybody should find out who their representative is on the Research Council to talk to them. I think at the beginning, we talked with leadership about this. We know the whole structure has changed. The research funding structure has changed this year and really shaken up a lot of things. So
John,
Yep.
there is a Research Council member on the call.
Oh.
Dr. Simmons just joined.
Okay. Dr. Simmons, did you hear this last question?
I saw a lot of questions in the chat, so if you want to tell me any that you need me to help field, I'm happy to go back and hit on them.
Well, this is the best one because this is really about the question was there was a creative scholarship grant that was completely separate that isn't there any longer, and They feel like with all the other funding being gone, like this was the one place where they would be able to find funding to continue funding their thing. Am I getting that right? Am I paraphrasing, or Elizabeth?
Can someone remind me what the CSG supported? It was a few years ago, so I don't remember the details.
Elizabeth?
The important thing about the CSG was that it was available to faculty regardless of what area they're from, and could support a new line of thinking. Say you're an associate professor and you're taking your research in a brand new direction, right? So it would be a creative outlet for you to get that preliminary funding to do a proof of concept to map to a next funding, external funding opportunity. So that's just one example, but there also used to be a more senior level funding opportunity. We have the new researcher, but we don't have any mid research faculty grant opportunities. And with the changing landscape, there's a lot of need for fully tenured faculty to have seed funding, but also questions around bridge funding. So what
Yeah, so
does the landscape look like?
let me share with folks what the thinking around this is and what are the rationale that have guided which things the Research Council is offering right now. So first of all, the primary screening tool that's used in deciding whether something should be offered by the Research Council is whether it's the kind of thing that requires spanning multiple units. That's one of the key things, because the idea is if it's the sort of thing that's within one college or one unit, probably the support for it in most cases should live there. And the backdrop for that is that our budget is very, very small compared to the budget of any college. And so the question is, and also that budget comes entirely from research overheads. And so essentially the thinking was to focus on things that wouldn't naturally be supported by any unit or college because it spans multiple units. So the bulk of the funds from the Research Council go to things that fit that definition. And the second element is because it is funded by research overheads, the bulk of that funding is expected to go to things that will generate more research overheads, meaning seed activities that lead to new external funding. Now, there are things that don't fit into those categories because there was such a strong feeling that it was important for the university, for such as international travel grant, doesn't necessarily fit those criteria. But it was such an unmet need that it was retained, despite not really fitting either. Potentially the same thing for the conference planning grant. And the new researcher grant was originally phased out because it didn't fit one of those. But again, it was identified as such a gap after it was phased out for a year that it was brought back when there was enough money. So that's the basic problem. Is last year the council had about $1.7 million. Sounds like a lot, but for a university with a $700 million research enterprise, it's tiny, and it's tiny compared to the budget the colleges have. And so for that reason, there has to be some serious strategic thought about which things the funding go to. I've also seen a few questions on here about whether people are eligible, say if they have startup funds or if they have an NIH grant. I'm sure you were told the answer is yes. Let me also just add the following thing. The Research Council does look very closely at whether there are other sources of funds that could be used for the activity. Because of the small budget, it wants to fund things that would not otherwise be funded. So for example, if you have startup and you write a new researcher grant, you will need to disclose that you have startup and explain why the existing startup will not cover that activity, right? Those are the kinds of things that are important for successful applications, is to show that those other funds would not cover that activity. So I hope that helps on those two items. For the Creative Scholarship Grant, the discussion would be, why is this something that should be at the Research Council and not internal college seed funding, which should exist? Now, it often doesn't. That's its own problem. But we have to find the solution that is sustainable and lets us have the highest impact. But I think, I'm sure folks would be happy to discuss that on the Research Council.
When in doubt, I was actually punting to the representatives so that they could talk to them about any new ideas and things given the current funding.
Yeah, for sure, reach
because
out to your representatives.
because I think given the changing things, the Research Council is willing to be flexible, but they need to have a debate at that level. So we're literally asking people, we'll tell them who their representative is so they can bring ideas to the council. But
you can also reach out directly to the council chair, which is Ganesh Halade.
Yeah. And I think your answer, I feel like I answered that pretty well based upon your answer. So we reinforced each other, which is pretty good. Other questions on this? We are up to the new researcher grant, and we only have the PEG left to go. I've gone over all the others and fielded questions. But David is here so if you guys have questions, because he sits on the Research Council. Before we move on, or we only have about 3 minutes left. I guess in the 3 minutes left, I will just mention the PEG. The last of the grants is the PEG grant, which is the Proposal Enhancement Grant, and it is really meant to fund if people got a competitive score but were not funded by an external funding source. The PEG is there to help them do that thing that they need to do. If you need to collect data, if you need to do something that requires additional resources in order to be more competitive, in order to resubmit that grant, that is the purpose of the PEG grant. Again, they're hoping for teams. When you do groups, you're more competitive as well. They want to actually see your what you got back from the agency to know that you were close, and they want an explanation of what do you need resources for in order to be more competitive? How is this going to help you get that funded proposal? So again, it could be for additional data collection, it could be for consultant, it could be for something that really adds to your proposal and will get you that extra 10 feet to get you over the finish line. It's really the purpose of the PEG grant. David, do you want to share any more insights as someone who's actually reviewed them?
No, I think that's exactly right. The question is always going to be, is the money going to make something get funded that would not otherwise be funded, right? So you can kind of lose two ways. One is if you're nowhere near the line in your prior proposal and we're not convinced it'll make the difference. The other way is if you're near the line, but it's not at all clear how the money will get you over. For example, if it looks like all you have to do is improve the presentation and writing of the proposal, that is not a good case, right? The kind of thing that the PEG would support is if you have reviews that make clear you need additional preliminary data, for example, right? Where there's actually a justification for how that money would get you over the line. We're looking at what difference does the funding make, so that frankly, then we can go back to the administration and say, look, all this money the Research Council is helping direct actually is growing the research pot, so you should give us more. All of this is directed to ultimately convincing the administration that we need more money for these kinds of support activities, which means we have to show ROI.
We have a question? Go
Yes,
ahead.
we have a question.
Yeah. So I read the instruction. This is for someone who submitted the proposal and then rejected and then enhance the proposal. But I'm working on a pre-proposal. This pre-proposal requires that we have already collected some data, preliminary data. So they do not accept a letter of intent if I do not have already collected some data. So, but I need to collect data to submit even a letter of intent. So in this case, it's also proposal enhancement, but it's not for a prior proposal. It's for a new proposal. Is that okay?
No, this you absolutely have to have the reviews from your prior submission, and we need to know that you're close to the funding level at the agency that you're applying to. So that would not be a fit for this particular opportunity.
Okay. Okay.
And again, if you hang on after we're done with this, after we turn the report, we'll talk a little bit more to see if we can find other ways to help you,
Okay.
separate
Yeah.
from this meeting.
Okay.
But that was the last proposal. You've all now seen how we go into InfoReady to apply for each one. Again, pay particular attention to the written guidelines and what they're evaluating on, because that's really important. The Research Council spelled out what they're looking for. So it's important you go into the written guidelines and look at what they're looking for, because that the evaluation is going to be based upon what they're looking for. So make sure you have looked at that when you're writing your response and when you're doing the applications. Again, the info-ready applications are easy. You can go in and out as you need to, save them, they save up, and then submit them when you're done. Remember, you always have to preview them before that you can submit them. And if there are other questions, you can always call me or email me. My cell phone and email address are actually on the InfoReady website, so that you can get me directly if you're trying to do something last minute. I know most of you never would be, but occasionally there's a person who submits something last minute that needs last minute help. And that's why my cell phone is there, to make sure you get it in on time. So thank you guys for coming. And again, this is taped, so we will stop the recording. Well, first, are there any final questions from anyone while David is here? Thank you, David, for coming in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Simmons.
Yeah, and I'm happy to stay on a few more minutes if folks have other questions they want to direct towards the senator or the research council or anything like that. I can.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording now so that you can address her questions.